What's up, guys? It's Shane here from House of Cards TCG, and today we're going to go over how to vanquish the Vanquish Soul Deck. Sorry, I had to. But anyway, this deck, if you've been living under a rock, this deck is everywhere. Regionals, nationals, you're playing on DB, Nexus, whatever you do. I've played against this deck a lot. It's a really strong deck, and it's a really difficult deck to navigate if you don't know what you're doing. So we're going to go over a sample list. We're going to go over a sample end board. We're going to kind of look at the cards, what they do, go over some tips, and then go over what are the best cards to main deck and side deck so you're prepared for the Vanquish Soul deck. I think this is going to be one of the best decks, maybe not the best deck. It's definitely a tier 1 meta contender, and I want to go over how to beat it so you're not caught empty-handed going into these events. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate all your support. We got to 3,000 subs. Now we're on the road to 4,000. So make sure to share it with your friends if you think that they could get any value from it. And yeah, make sure to ding that notification bell. And let's hop right in.
House of Cards.
TCG.
Okay, so before we get started, make sure to check out the link in the description for our official hoodie. I'm wearing it right now. Looks really nice. Got our signature pattern on it, and we have a playmat available. Colors turned out really good. Make sure to check that out. Link is in the description. So here is a sample list. I got to give all the credit here to Ryan Levine. He put this on Twitter. I think he went 5-1 or 6-1. Not sure what event, but the list looks really solid. Again, Ryan Levine, he's a great player. And this is a typical standard Vanquish Soul deck. So you got the one Caesar Valius, that's kind of the boss monster. Some lists play 2. You got 3 Mad Love, 3 of the Borger, 1 of the Spell Trap Pop, Pantera, I think the name is, and then 3 of the Soul Raisin. That's the best card in the deck. That's your Searcher. Stratos kind of does everything. 3 Fenrir, this is your Earth card. The deck relies on having attributes in hand, so Fenrir is kind of perfect there because it summons itself, creates a disruption, and then adds another copy of itself, so you have the Earth in hand. And then after that, we have the 1 Rise Heart. There's some cool rank 4 plays you can do, or even rank 7s. You'll see he plays the Big Eye. Not too many good rank 7s, obviously, but you have a really good rank 4 toolbox in this deck, so it's just a free summon. It's also a fire attribute, so having searchable fire attributes is really important. And then you have the 3 Ash Blossom. Again, it's one of the best hand traps, and it doubles as having a fire attribute. The 1 Div Incarnate, he's playing Small World, so Small World can search it. Makes it really powerful against something like an Arise Heart, because the Small World will trigger the Arise Heart mandatory effect, and then your Kura card will be live. So really powerful there. He's playing 3 Bell because it's Earth. I don't love Bell right now. It's just not generic enough. I would rather see something like an Imperm in there, but I do understand the reasoning that you really need to have these attributes in your hand if you're going to be playing the game. So his list, it looks very consistent for that reason. But certain matchups, you just don't. I mean, Bell just doesn't do anything. So he's playing the 1 Regulus because, like I said, the rank 4 toolbox, you can go into Merrymaker, into Sargus. Sargus can search Regulus, and then if you have a Borger in Grave, it's a machine, so you have an Omni Negate. And then he has 1 DD Crow, probably just to keep the amount of darks at a good number there, because you just, like I said, the attributes are very important, so having a dark there is very important. 3 Effect Veiler, it's a Small World bridge, so good to have 3 of them. You want to draw it. Light attribute doesn't really matter, but having that bridge for the Small World is really important. 3 Stake Your Soul. This is it's kind of reminds me of the Cash Tira spell Theosis, in that it requires something you to have another piece in hand for it to work, which kind of messes with the value of it, but it could be any monster in hand, so that's why he's probably valuing the monster hand traps there. Stake Your Soul, and then 2 of the Revival from the Graveyard, 1 of the Book of Moon, 3 Prosperity, 1 Rhoda, and then 3 Small World. It looks like a really consistent list. And then if you look at the extra deck, pretty self-explanatory. Some pretty cool lines. Be on the lookout if you're playing Cashier and you're going versus Vanquish Soul. You might want you might want to think about not activating the Shangri-Ira effect in the standby phase, because then if they just summon a Fenrir or a Rise Heart, they can go into a Rise Heart and then just go to battle phase, attack something, make a quick and easy Zeus, and then Zeus you. So really be on the lookout for that. Double Zeus, probably not mandatory anymore now that we don't have Diablosis. Merrymaker Sargus, and then we have the Big Eye. Like I said, rank 7, you don't really need it, but is what it is. Abyss Dweller is really strong. Baron, you can normal summon a hand trap and then make the Baron. I was kind of messing around with this, with his list, and this was like the best end board I made. This was like a god hand, so it's not always going to end like this. But you have the Rock of the Vanquisher, which is a quick effect revive or special from hand. You have the Sargus, which becomes an interruption if you're playing against a deck that has Xyz. We have the Regulus as an Omni Negate, brought back by the, it has equipped the Borger. We have Fenrir as a interruption, and then we have double hand traps. And obviously we would set the Dust Devil, but once I set it, I wouldn't be able to show it to you. So I kept it in hand here. And you're probably thinking, well, that Dust Devil isn't even live because I don't have a Vanquish Soul. But the Rock of the Vanquisher is a quick effect to summon one from hand. So you're going to summon your Raisin. Raisin also, we left the other, the Link Zone open, because if they play into it, you can use the Raisin and pop multiple cards within that column. So this deck has a kind of column gimmick as well. But once we summon the Raisin, we'll get a trigger from that, and then we'll also have the Dust Devil to Book of Moon, which is effectively in FTK versus Kashtira. So this deck does have a really good Kashtira matchup, so be on the lookout. They have a searchable Book of Moon, which is really strong. General advice. This is the most basic advice for anyone playing Yu-Gi-Oh at all, but read the cards. This deck did really well over the weekend, and the cards got bought out. And I think the biggest reason is because people just didn't know what was happening. They hadn't looked into the deck. They hadn't read the cards. The cards have a really good way of dodging effects, and we're going to go over that. But I found this meme, and I thought it was perfectly applicable. But obviously, you want to read the cards, familiarize yourself. You don't want, this deck is going to be popular. I know it was expensive. So, I mean, some people might not want to pony up $400 or whatever it was, just because there's so many ultra rares. But make sure you're reading the cards. Slow down, think through your plays. When they add a card hand, make sure you read it. It's going to go a long way. Again, I know that's basic Yu-Gi-Oh advice, but it really is applicable with these cards that have a paragraph of text on them. You want to know what they're doing. More general advice. So the Vanquish Soul archetype has a kind of built-in dodging kind of effect where they can dodge any kind of targeting effects in the main phase. So you have the Caesar Valius and you have the Heavy Borger, and both of them during the main phase you can target. So for Heavy Borger, it's a non-machine Vanquish Soul. It targets its cost, and then you return it to hand, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. So something like if you're using the Raisin as Chain Link 1 and they chain Imperm or Veiler, you can do Chain Link 3, Heavy Borger, target it, bounce it to hand, so it still resolves, and you get the summon of the Borger, so it's really, really powerful. Same thing with Caesar Valius, except it's a non-dragon. Keep in mind, these are during the main phase only quick effects. I've seen a lot of people on DB trying to do these outside of the main phase, and it doesn't work. So if you have an Imperm, it's really not that great versus this deck, but you want to use it outside of the main phase if you want to get any value out of it at all. Next thing, avoid playing into column-based destruction effects. So they have the Pantera and the Raisin, which Pantera pops spells and traps in this card's column. So, I mean, you don't want to set your most important spell or trap in a zone where they have a Pantera already. This one, they can kind of force it and put it where, where they want. But for the Raisin, you also don't want to put multiple monsters in the link zone, because they could wind up popping them both, because this card can, if they reveal a Fire and a Dark in hand, they can destroy all monsters in this card's column. So they're going to put it there intentionally. They're going to try to bait you into it. So they're going to put it into that link zone, the open link zone, and hope that you put two monsters in a row. So kind of like back to, if you remember Mech Knights, you don't want to put a bunch of cards in the same column when you're playing against Vanquish Soul. So I'm going to go for a few cards that are really just not that good versus this deck. Imperm, like I said, because it's a targeting effect, they can just dodge it and then you just hand rip yourself. Same thing goes for Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is worse because not only did you just hand rip yourself, but now you're playing into talents. The sample list I showed didn't play Triple Tactics talent, but I mean, it's a very viable card this format. Same thing with Thrust, so you don't want to play into that if you can avoid it. So I mean, these are pretty good main deck cards, but you might want to consider siding them out. Just not going to get a whole lot of value versus Vanquish Soul. One card that is really good is Droll and Lockbird. If you notice, they play Prosperity, they play Rhoda, they play Small World, and then they have the Raisin, which searches a monster, and then the Mad Love, which searches a spell or trap. So this deck does lose out pretty badly to Droll. So if you can, I know Droll has some kind of difficult matchups. I think it's actually well positioned this format. So I would really consider at least having Droll in the side deck because it's very strong versus Vanquish Soul. Next card, Ash. You want to stop the Raisin. The Raisin is kind of, it does everything for the deck. It searches a spell. I mean, it searches a monster. So they're going to typically search out the Mad Love and then go into the Link and then the Link effect to summon out the Mad Love. And that's going to grab one of their spells, either the Book of Moon or the Monster Reborn. So if you can stop that with Ash Blossom, that's pretty good. It's not like the best versus this deck. It's not insane. It's not as good as Droll by any means, but Ash is still a viable card. You could either Ash the Stake Your Soul, which is another good Ash because that can help him get to the Raisin, or you could Ash the Raisin itself. Better to Ash Stake Your Soul, but ashing the Raisin isn't bad. Next card is Ghost Spell. You can Ghost Spell the Link one that they have. It revives from the graveyard, so if they're using that effect, you can Bell that, and that's really powerful. Sorry, I think it adds back. Yeah, it adds back to hand. It doesn't revive it. It either summons one from hand or adds back from the graveyard. So if you can stop that kind of loop there, the Bell comes in handy. Droplet, because this card isn't targeting and it can't be responded to, Droplet is very powerful versus Vanquish Soul. It's a card I would really consider in this next format. I think Droplet's going to be really strong again with us seeing less Kashtira. Droplet gains a lot of value. People forget that this card is crazy. Your opponent can't respond to it if you send, a monster, spell trap, or all three from hand or field as cost. So I think Droplet gains a lot of utility versus this deck. Next card, Dark Ruler No More. A lot of their effects are quick effects. So if you just Dark Ruler the board, they might have, like I said, that searchable Book of Moon, which could be strong versus your deck, but you're shutting off a lot of their other interactions. So board breakers are strong versus this deck. Same kind of thing with Lightning Storm. If you just Lightning Storm, get rid of the bodies. A lot of players right now aren't really respecting this card. They're just putting everything in attack position. And if you can just Lightning Storm, that's going to gain some value there. I think Lightning Storm is a really good card this format. Raigeki, same kind of thing. Just kind of a little bit less versatile than Lightning Storm, but Raigeki's a really strong card. I think it's a really good side deck card this format because it hits a lot of decks. This deck, Vanquish Soul, just doesn't put up a lot of negations. So a Raigeki can go a long way. They don't really have a super consistent way to negate it. Yes, they can go into the Regulus if they have a very strong hand, like I did in the example. But otherwise, their board's really weak to board breakers. Same thing with Evenly. Evenly just makes them lose a lot of value. Really strong card. Evenly is pretty good into this next format because the format is lacking any kind of crazy combo deck like Super Heavy was last format, where they just put up infinite negations and you were never going to be able to resolve this kind of card. This format is a lot slower, a lot grindier. Decks like Sky Striker are going to be good. Decks like, obviously, Vanquish Soul. Decks like Labyrinth. Kashtira is even turned into a much more slow tempo kind of grindy deck. So Evenly is going to be really strong. Next we have Gozen Match. Gozen is a really strong floodgate versus them because all their monsters, well, a lot of their monsters are different attributes. The whole kind of, I don't want to say gimmick, but the main gimmick within the deck is that you need different attributes So Gozen is going to be really strong. It's going to potentially limit what they can do. Same thing goes for Rivalry. This deck can play There Can Be Only One, so all their monsters are different types. So a Rivalry is very strong versus this deck. I would highly consider, if your deck can play Rivalry or Gozen, I think this is a very good side deck card versus Vanquish Soul, so I would highly consider it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there's anything down below that we might have missed, or any kind of silver bullet cards that you've noticed. We really appreciate your feedback. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ding that notification bell. And Shane from House of Cards TCG, signing out.